back and we look back at verses 19 through 20, they was disobedient because the Lord told them, don't keep it until the morning. But they kept it until the morning because they was disobedient. See, they kept it, right? It sound like a little greed too. They kept it thinking, oh, we're going to have this for tomorrow. But they was disobedient. So it was maggots and it began to smell, right? But then God then commanded about the next day being the Sabbath, right? And so for them to bake and boil what they can and save whatever is left and keep it into the morning. And now they did that, right? And guess what? They was obedient. And so the next morning it didn't stink. It didn't get any maggots or anything in it, right? So what I mean by that, y'all, is that this scripture is showing how gracious God is. That's another characteristic or attribute of God. He is a gracious God, right? He'll tell us to do something and we don't do it. We do what our preference was, right? Because if we look back at 19 and 20, their preference was to keep it for the morning, for the next day. That's what they didn't do what God wanted to do, told them to do. They did what they wanted to do because that was their preference, right? But then when God commanded them about the seventh and the bake and boil, they was obedient, right? And so because they were obedient, right, God showed them grace, right? God showed them grace. God showed them mercy. And not only that, God gave them an opportunity to redeem themselves. He gave them an opportunity to redeem themselves because when they disobeyed him, he still gave them an opportunity to fix it, to get it right. Right? And so, and this is something else. Thank you, God. This is something else, y'all. Do you see how sometimes God's will, what God wants us to do is not in line with our preference? And a lot of times we like to pick and choose and kind of wiggle in between the two, right? We like to half step a lot, right? And I say that because if we go back in verses 19 and 20, their preference, they wanted to save it for the next morning, but God didn't want that. That wasn't God's will, but that's what they prefer. So again, they was disobedient, did what they wanted to do. But when God said bake and boil and save it until the morning, oh, they could do that. They could be obedient to that. Why? Because that was in alignment with their preference. That was in alignment with what they wanted to do, right? God's will is not our will. What God wants us to do is not what we want to do. And we have to still be able to be obedient regardless if it's something, if his will is what we want to do is our preference, or if his will is not our preference. But we still have to be obedient.